Lecture 50, Cos and Tyros, the Maritime Powers of Gore. History of Rivalry, Shipping, Trade, Piracy, and Known Rulers. A lecture by Sarek and Thorne. Part 1, Opening. Masters, mistresses, free men and free women, Kajare and Kajarii, I greet you. The circle is open. We have spoken of the city-states of the mainland, of Ar and its towers, of Tharna and its masks. We have spoken of the northern peoples, the Torvaldslanders, the Red Hunters, and the Ruskara beyond the mountains. But Gore is also surrounded by sea. The great ocean of Thassa washes the western shores of the continent. And on that ocean there are islands, powerful islands. Islands with fleets that can challenge the might of Ar itself. This lecture covers the two great maritime ubarates of Gore, Cos and Tyros. We will discuss their history, their rivalry, their shipping and trade, their pirates and mercenaries, and their known rulers. We will examine the balance of power between these island nations and the mainland. We will explore their cultural roots, Cos in the spirit of ancient Greece, Tyros in the mercantile power of Phoenicia and Carthage. And we will ask, are there other maritime powers? What of the Torvi? And did Cos and Tyros know of the Pani before the events of the later books? The circle is open. Part 2, the geography of Cos and Tyros. Cos and Tyros are island nations in the Thassa Ocean, west of the mainland of Gore. Cos is the larger of the two. It is a fertile island, known for its vineyards and its shipyards. Its position allows it to dominate the southern sea lanes. Cos is a major naval power, with a fleet that has challenged Ar for centuries. Cos is often portrayed as the more culturally refined of the two maritime powers, embodying the spirit of ancient Greece. Its cities likely feature marble temples and amphitheaters, echoing the aesthetic of the Hellenic world. Tyros is a rocky, mountainous island. It lies 100 passings south of Cos and about 400 passings west of Port Car. The main city of Tyros is Kasra. Tyros is known for its silk production, a valuable trade good across Gore. It also produces red olives from its groves. The island has quarries where male slaves work, often born in slave-breeding pens. Tyros tends to embody the mercantile and maritime aspects of the Phoenicians and their Carthaginian descendants. The focus is heavily on commerce, naval supremacy, and practical wealth generation. The architecture of Tyros is likely more functional and fortified, strong walls, dry docks, warehouses, with a society that might be perceived as more reserved or calculating than the artistic Cosians. Both islands are maritime ubarates literally, sea kingdoms or sea empires. They are not city-states in the same sense as Ar. They are island nations whose power rests on their fleets and their control of sea trade. BTB plus principle applied. The geographical descriptions are based on the books. The cultural comparisons, Cos as Greek-influenced, Tyros as Phoenician-Carthaginian-influenced, are logical expansions. The priest-kings brought humans from all cultures on Earth. It is entirely consistent that the peoples of Cos and Tyros are descended from Greek and Phoenician transplants. This is not replacement. It is filling a gap. Part 3, History of the Rivalry. The rivalry between Cos and Tyros on one side and Ar on the other is one of the central conflicts in the Gorean saga. The balance of power. For generations, a careful balance of power existed between Ar and the great maritime ubarates. Ar dominated the continent. Cos and Tyros dominated the sea. Neither could easily defeat the other. This balance made possible the existence of independent mercenary companies who could sell their services to whichever power needed them. The invasion of R. The major military event in the later books is the invasion of R by the combined forces of Cos and Tyros. The armada of the maritime ubarates entered the collaborating port of Brundisium. The forces of Cos and Tyros and their allies beached upon the mainland, using the city of Torcadino as a repository for supplies, preparing to march on a nigh undefended and unprepared R. This invasion threatened not only R but the entire political structure of Gore. Should R fall, the disinterested tolerances and neutralities, and even the balance of power long sustained between R and the great maritime ubarates would vanish. Tyros and Port Card Tyros has been at odds with Port Car for centuries. This is a separate rivalry between two maritime powers competing for trade routes and influence. The assassination plot. The maritime ubarates did not rely only on military force. They also used spies and assassins. In Players of Gore, Cabot discovers a plot laid against his life, leading him to the port city of Brundisium, where he obtains not only satisfaction but also keys to enciphered documents germane to the machinations of Cos and Tyros. The dynamic between Cos and Tyros. The distinction between the two islands creates a compelling dynamic. Cos provides the face of culture and legitimate power, the art, the poetry, the philosophy that give the alliance a veneer of civilization. Tyros acts as the financial backbone and logistical muscle, the trade networks, the shipyards, the practical wealth that funds the war. Cos is the shield, Tyros is the sword. Together they form a formidable alliance. BTB plus principle applied, the history of rivalry is in the books. The balance of power, the invasion of R, the use of Torcadino as a staging ground, the enciphered documents, all are canonical. The cultural dynamic between Cos and Tyros is a logical expansion based on their distinct historical inspirations. We respect this foundation and do not invent new conflicts that contradict the established narrative. Part 4. Known Rulers. Tyros. The Ubar of Tyros is Chenbar. He is described as the ruler during the events of the invasion of R. Under his rule, Tyros maintained slave-breeding pens where women were used to produce children for the quarries, a grim aspect of the Tyrian economy. Cos. The leadership of Cos is less clearly defined in the search results. Cos appears to have been ruled by a council of merchants and admirals, or perhaps by a Ubar whose name is not recorded in these sources. What is clear is that Cos and Tyros acted as allies, their fleets cooperating against the common enemy, R. The Greek-inspired nature of Cos might suggest a council of archons or a senate of merchant princes, rather than a single powerful Ubar. This would be a logical BTB plus expansion. Cos is governed by a league of city-states or a council of oligarchs, while Tyros is a more centralized monarchy under Chenbar. Mercenary captains. In addition to the rulers of the cities themselves, mercenary captains played significant roles. Dietrich of Tarnberg is one such figure, a mercenary captain who seized Torcadino in a surprise attack, hoping to forestall the imminent march against R until she had time to arm and defend herself. Cabot carried secret letters for Dietrich to the administration of R. BTB plus principle applied. The known rulers are Chenbar of Tyros and Dietrich of Tarnberg, a mercenary captain. The books provide these names. The suggestion that Cos might be ruled by a council or a league of city-states is a logical BTB plus expansion, consistent with its Greek-inspired cultural roots. We do not invent additional rulers without cause. The foundation is the foundation. Part 5. Shipping, Trade, and Economy. Both Cos and Tyros depend on the sea for their wealth. Tyrian products and Tyros is famous for its silk. Tyrian silk is traded across Gore, a luxury good sought after by the wealthy. The island also produces red olives from its groves. The association of Tyros with Tyrian purple, the famous dye of the ancient Phoenicians, is a logical BTB plus expansion. While the books do not explicitly state that Tyros produces purple dye, the name itself is evocative. A role player could reasonably describe Tyrian merchants wearing purple-trimmed cloaks, or Tyrian sails dyed with the expensive pigment. This would be consistent with the Phoenician Carthaginian inspiration. Tyrian quarries. Tyros has stone quarries. The work is done by male slaves, many of whom are born in slave-breeding pens. Women captured or purchased for this purpose are kept as breeding slaves. Their children become property of the city. This is a dark aspect of the Tyrian economy, but it is explicitly described in the books. Cosian products. While the search results do not detail Cosian exports, Cos is consistently described as a maritime power with a large fleet. Its wealth likely derives from trade, acting as a transshipment point for goods moving between the mainland and the islands. Cos might also produce wine, olive oil, and pottery, goods associated with ancient Greece. These are logical BTB plus expansions. The Armada, the combined fleet of Cos and Tyros, is described as an armada. This suggests a large number of ships capable of transporting an army large enough to threaten R. Ship identification. The ships of Tyros are equipped with yellow sails. The Tyrian warriors wear yellow tunics, yellow helmets, and yellow caps. This is a clear mark of identification, like the red tunics of R's warriors. Cosian ships might use different colors, perhaps blue or green, or perhaps the natural color of undyed linen. The books do not specify. This is a gap. A logical BTB plus expansion. Cosian ships are painted white or light blue with bronze rams. Their sails are white or striped. BTB plus principle applied. The trade goods silk, olives, quarry stone are canonical. The use of yellow as Tyros color is canonical. The existence of slave breeding pens is canonical. The association of Tyrian purple with Tyros is a logical BTB plus expansion, not a contradiction. We do not invent new products that contradict the books, but we may add products that are consistent with the cultural inspiration. Part 6. Piracy and mercenaries. The distinction between navy, merchant marine, and pirates is blurry on Gore, especially in the waters around Cos and Tyros. Privateers, ships from Cos and Tyros that attacked port car vessels, were probably not considered pirates by their own cities. They were privateers, privately owned ships authorized to attack enemy shipping. Pirates of Port Car. Port Car is famously a pirate city. Cos and Tyros are enemies of Port Car. This suggests that the maritime ubarates saw themselves as the civilized sea powers, fighting against the lawlessness of Port Car, though their own tactics may not have been very different. Mercenary companies. Both Cos and Tyros hired mercenary companies to supplement their forces. On Gore, there are numerous mercenary companies, some larger, some smaller, whose services may be purchased or bid upon for given periods of time. The allegiance of these companies is to their pay and their captains. When Cos and Tyros invaded the mainland, they used these mercenary companies to bolster their armies. Naval tactics. The Greek-inspired Cosians might favor fast triremes designed for ramming. The Phoenician-inspired Tyrians might favor heavier merchant vessels converted for war, with decks for marine archers and catapults. This is a logical BTB plus expansion, not in the books, but consistent with their cultural roots. BTB plus principle applied. The existence of mercenary companies is canonical. The enmity between Tyros and Port Car is canonical. The suggested naval tactics are logical BTB plus expansions. We do not invent new mercenary groups without cause, nor do we ignore the established relationship between the maritime powers and the pirate city. Part 7. The Pani. Did Cos and Tyros know them? This is an excellent question, my sweetest. The Pani are a people from World's End, a chain of islands far to the west of Thassa, beyond the known world. The Pani in the books, the Pani appear in the later books of the Gorian saga: swordsmen of Gore, mariners of Gore, conspirators of Gore, smugglers of Gore, and rebels of Gore. They are not mentioned in the earlier books where Cos and Tyros are central to the plot. What Cos and Tyros knew. Cos and Tyros were maritime powers. They sailed far. They may have known of islands beyond the known map, but the search results provide no evidence that Cos or Tyros had any direct contact with the Pani before the events of the later books. The Pani, when they first appear in the series, are a mystery to the mainlanders. Even the Torvaldslanders, who know the Curii and have sailed far, are not described as having prior contact with the Pani. BTB plus logical expansion. Cos and Tyros may have heard rumors of islands far to the west. They may have traded with intermediate islands, but they did not have established diplomatic or trade relations with the Pani before the events of the later books. Why? Because the Pani are described as xenophobic. They see mainlanders as barbaric and weak. They do not welcome outsiders. It is unlikely they would have initiated contact. Therefore, no, Cos and Tyros did not know the Pani before the events of the later books. They may have heard rumors. They had no formal contact. BTB plus principle applied. The foundation is the books. The Pani appear in later books and are treated as new to the mainlanders. We do not invent prior contact. This would contradict the established narrative. Part 8. Other maritime powers. Logical BTB plus expansion. The search results mention Cos, Tyros, and Port Car as the major maritime powers. But are there others? The Torvi. The Torvi are a northern people related to the Torvaldslanders. They are seafarers. They sail in longships and raid coastal settlements. They are not mentioned as a major naval power in the same class as Cos or Tyros. Their fleets are smaller, their reach more limited. BTB plus approach to the Torvi. The Torvi are not a maritime ubarate in the same sense as Cos or Tyros. They are a tribal people, not a unified city-state. Their ships are longships designed for raiding, not for sustained naval campaigns. We can treat the Torvi as a regional power, not a continental power. They threaten the coastal villages of the north. They do not threaten our other possible maritime powers. Gore is a large planet. Only 15% of it has been explored in the books. There could be other island nations to the west, south, or east. Possible expansions for roleplay. An island nation based on Carthage or Phoenicia, focused on trade, with a powerful merchant fleet. Tyros already fills this role to some extent. An island nation based on Minoan Crete, a thalassocracy that dominated the sea in an earlier age and is now in decline. A chain of independent islands, each with its own ruler, loosely allied against mainland incursion. A pirate republic not unlike Port Car but located elsewhere, perhaps in the southern hemisphere. BTB plus rule for creating new maritime powers. Any such addition must respect the established balance of power. Cos and Tyros are the dominant maritime powers in the known world. A new maritime power would have to be located outside the known areas, far to the south, far to the west, or far to the east. It would have to be discovered, not simply inserted into the existing map without explanation. The Torvi is a special case. The Torvi are not a new maritime power to be discovered. They are already known, at least to the Torvaldslanders and the northern cities. But they are not a ubarate. They are not organized. They are a tribal people. Treat them as such. BTB plus principle applied. The books mention Cos, Tyros, and Port Car. These are the canonical maritime powers. The Torvi are a northern seafaring people, not a maritime ubaret. Other maritime powers are possible, but they must be added logically without contradicting the books. Gaps are invitations to expand, not to replace. Part 9, BTB plus Summary, the cultural roots of Cos and Tyros. Let me summarize the cultural inspirations for Cos and Tyros. Cos, Greek influence. Architecture, marble temples, amphitheaters, stoas, agoras. Government, possibly a council of archons or a senate of oligarchs rather than a single ubar. Products, wine, olive oil, pottery, art, philosophy. Naval tactics, triremes, ramming speed, maneuverability. Cultural character, artistic, philosophical, proud, competitive. Tyros, Phoenician, Carthaginian influence. Architecture, fortified harbors, dry docks, high walls, functional warehouses. Government, monarchy under Chenbar with powerful merchant families. Products, silk, red olives, quarry stone, possibly Tyrian purple dye. Naval tactics, heavy merchant vessels converted for war, archers, marines, catapults. Cultural character, mercantile, calculating, wealthy, ruthless in pursuit of profit. Why this works? The priest-kings brought humans from all cultures on earth. It is entirely consistent that the ancestors of the Cosians were Greek transplants, and the ancestors of the Tyrians were Phoenician or Carthaginian transplants. Their distinct cultures would have evolved over thousands of years, but the core influences would remain. BTB plus principle applied. The books do not explicitly state that Cos is Greek or Tyros is Phoenician. This is a gap. Filling it with these cultural inspirations is logical, respectful, and does not contradict the books. It is expansion, not replacement. Part 10. What destroys the feeling? BTB plus perspective. Do not do these things, ignoring the balance of power. Cos and Tyros were able to challenge R because they had naval superiority. The mainland had no significant navy. This matters. Forgetting that Cos and Tyros are allies, they are not rivals, they cooperate against R. Their alliance is the foundation of their military strength, making Cos or Tyros weaker than they are. They are major powers, they have large fleets. They can project force across Thassa, inventing new maritime powers without cause. A new island nation discovered by a tarnsman or a ship captain is possible, but it must be treated as new, not as an existing power that everyone already knows. Ignoring the mercenary companies. The maritime powers hired mercenaries. They did not rely solely on their own citizens, forgetting the color codes. Tyrian warriors wear yellow. Tyrian ships have yellow sails. This is canonical. Cosian colors are not specified, a gap you may fill logically. Pretending the Pani were known. They were not. They are a late series addition. Do not retroactively insert them into earlier political conflicts, making Torvi into a maritime ubaret. They are not. They are a tribal people. Their longships are for raiding, not for sustained naval campaigns, ignoring the cultural roots. Cos is Greek-inspired. Tyros is Phoenician Carthaginian inspired. Embrace this. It adds depth. BTB plus principle applied. The foundation is the books. Cos and Tyros are described as powerful maritime ubarets. Their colors and products are described. The Pani are not mentioned in the early books. The Torvi are not a maritime ubaret. We respect this. The cultural inspirations are logical BTB plus expansions, not contradictions. Part 11, Closing the Circle. I have spoken. Now I ask you to consider. Cos and Tyros are not mere islands. They are maritime ubarets, sea kingdoms whose power rests on their fleets. For generations, they maintained a careful balance of power with R. R ruled the land. Cos and Tyros ruled the sea. Cos embodies the spirit of ancient Greece, art, philosophy, marble temples, triremes. Tyros embodies the mercantile power of Phoenicia and Carthage, silk, red olives, fortified harbors, yellow sails. Together they form a formidable alliance. Cos the shield, Tyros the sword. That balance was shattered by the invasion. The armada of Cos and Tyros and their allies beached on the mainland, using Torcadino as a staging ground. The goal, the conquest of Ar itself. The result, a desperate struggle for survival and the involvement of mercenary captains like Dietrich of Tarnberg. Tyros is ruled by Chenbar. Its warriors wear yellow. Its ships carry yellow sails. Its economy depends on silk, olives, and the labor of slaves, including those born in slave-breeding pens. Cos is equally powerful, though its rulers are less known. It may be governed by a council of archons or a league of city-states. The Torvi are seafarers, but they are not maritime ubarates. They are northern raiders, not continental powers. The Pani were unknown to Cos and Tyros before the events of the later books. They are a mystery from beyond the known world. And other maritime powers, they may exist beyond the map, beyond the horizon, but they must be discovered, not inserted. This is Gore, a world of land and sea, a world where the balance of power is always shifting and where the sea is never safe. The circle is yours.